Hey everyone, Pastor George here again with this silky smooth voice coming in from this nice mic I got. Here today for our Bible study recap, which I'm bringing to you later because with the stuff with GA, I didn't have time to record until tonight. So I don't know, maybe this works better for some of your schedules. You can watch it when you need to. So today we looked at chapters 6 and 7 of the book of Job, which is Job's response to his friend Eliphaz. So if you want to go back and watch my last video, you can. But in short, what happened the last time we were with Job was that Eliphaz, one of his friends, talked back to him. So Job has been lamenting. He's been, talking about how he doesn't understand why this is happening to him. And Eliphaz's response is to say, well, dude, you must have done something wrong, right? And he gives him, a bunch of examples. And these two chapters are Job's response to that. And you'll notice it's kind of in two big sections. And so I'll just deal with both of the sections. So the first section, which is most of chapter 6 and a little bit of chapter 7, it was all of chapter 6 and a little bit of chapter 7, I should say, is Job's response to his friends and how they aren't giving him what he needs. So they're not being very pastoral or supportive of him during this time, at least in his estimation. And he relates it to like bad food, right? I don't have a taste for this type of thing. One of the things that he does, one of the images that he uses that I think is really good is his image that he uses when he's talking about the oasis in the desert and how he was expecting his friends to serve an oasis, right? There's this part in chapter 6 which might be a little confusing, but he's talking about torrent plains or rivers, something like that. But it's kind of referring to being in the desert, and it's just deserts are dry. But when you're traveling through the desert as a caravan, right, there are certain places that are usually marked out for stops. Sometimes these are called wadis, but a lot of time they're known in English as oases. And when you get there, it's a welcome reprieve when you reach there because there's water. But there are times during the season or certain weather events can happen where you get there and it turns out that the water's gone. So it's been dispersed for some reason. Either it was flooded up too high and got out other places, or it dried up for some reason. And Job relates it to his friends as being like these dried up places. He was hoping for some sustenance from them. He gets there and they don't give it to him. He doesn't have it. And so he kind of gets after his friends, and all he wants them to do is to show him where Job went wrong, right? What did I do that was wrong? Like, can you give me anything? Because that's all I want. And so in that, he moves into chapter 7, where he moves to talking to God. And talking about life as a human, right? So he's calling on God to remember the way that he has created humanity and what is humanity's lot, right? Well, to Job, humanity's lot is a lot like we see in Ecclesiastes, where it's this idea that you live a short time and then you're gone. But the problem there with this is Job says, I cannot see any hope, right? There is no hope that can come from me. But if you know the story of Job, you'll see that that's not actually true. But it has this really good contrasting idea, and that's really at the heart of Job, is what do we do with the problem of evil, right? What do we do when we suffer for things that we might not deserve to suffer for? And so people in the Bible study brought up a wonderful example of like the recent shooting that happened in Illinois, right? And so like, what's the purpose in that? And my response was somewhat received, somewhat not well received, with a little bit of pushback, but I think that's good because it is kind of a difficult thing to talk about. But the response that the Bible gives and Job gives is that God has a purpose for these things that happen. Now, as I was pointed out, it's like that doesn't do a whole lot of good in the moment, right? Because it's like you don't know what the purpose are, you can't see it, and the bad thing has happened. So it's like, what is God's response to these bad things? Well, it's always to act justly toward them, right? So even if human institutions fail, God will repay evil for its what it deserves, right? Which is with justice. And so that's something that we as Christians can really hold on to. That even though we can be like Job and not see the goodness in the future, we know that it's there because that's the promise that God gives, even though that's difficult to deal with. And I gave them two alternatives, which I believe are the only alternatives that you kind of have, which is that God permits evil to happen, puts all of the problem of solving it on us, which means that maybe sometimes we deal with it, but a lot of times it's not dealt with, and it just is something that happens with no answer. Or the third option is that there is no God, and these things just happen, and we can stomp our feet and complain about them all we want, but in reality, there's no answer for it. And there is no morality, there is no good or evil. All of this system that we've built up kind of falls down. Now, that's not true. There is a God, right? The Bible testifies to that. I myself have seen the salvation. We as Christians have these born-again experiences where we know these things to be true. But the idea here is that these are things that we can't ignore, but also that we don't have to just wallow in despair and sadness because we know that they have an answer. That's a big part of the book of Job. So in that way, I love doing Job because it always is relevant. Because there's always tragic things that are going on in our own lives, difficulty that we are having, or in others that really help us to remember that really fundamental truth. So that's what we talked about today. Heavy stuff. I'm not going to have Bible study next week. I'm on vacation. So in 2 weeks, we're going to return to the book of Job. So like I told the people today, if you want to refresh, just like briefly skim these 2 chapters next week, which will prepare you really well for Bildad, another of Job's friends, his response to what Job has to say. So I'll see you guys in 2 weeks for our Bible study. And I'll see you tomorrow for our mailbag because we got a question, but send more. If you have a question, please send them. You guys have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday for the 4 hours that we have left, and peace out.